the drums, the electric guitar that I almost find necessary to bring in the passion and the intensity that must be involved when we're talking about these miracles. It's a miracle. Oh. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ultimate World Music Reaction channel. It's me, Rosalie, back with brand new content, and one that you have been waiting on. We've been exploring Nightwish, a symphonic metal band from Finland, consistent of artists from various countries in Europe, including our beautiful Flor Jansen. Has had quite the journey with different lead singers and different musicians that have come and gone. And it's been very interesting to me to explore symphonic metal and metal in general. So check out the different playlists organized by countries to see some of the music that I've been exploring. But as I've said many times before, I love rock. I love some harder rock, but I've never been into metal. So to explore the different subgenres within that world and to see how diverse and vast it is pretty interesting. And today I want to check out a big one, Nightwish, the greatest show on earth. I've been on this journey exploring different songs, and as time allows, more to come. But one of the big songs that I had been working towards was Poet and Pendulum, which I have out as well. And now the greatest show on earth. And I wanted to make sure that I review several of their other songs first so I can get to know their style, the lyrics, so I can explore them more and more. And it's been quite the journey. Now I've worked my way to the big one, the greatest show on earth. Now, what I know so far is that the greatest show on earth is one of their really big projects. It's a 20-minute video, so I'm going to try to pause as little as possible. We'll explore the lyrics. We'll talk about it in the end. But what I understand is that it is a song about the creation or the development coming into existence of the world, I think, i.e. creation, evolution, depending on how you want to look at it, how it all came to be. That's what I think I was told that it's about, but I guess we'll find out. As always, like, share, subscribe, you guys. So without further ado, subscribe, and here we go. Real quick, first thought I'm thinking is phenomenal, the composition here. I mean, right? Some people who are not familiar with metal, or for me who has been learning about it gradually, it will be so easy to think metal means rock, means screaming, means just straightforward. And we box things in because that's often what we do as human beings, right? A sense of familiarity, control. But what's amazing here is how much classical music is part of symphonic metal, right? Symphonies, obviously, right? It's in the word, orchestral arrangements, the build up here of the composition on the keys, the major and minor notes. You guys know we're all about music and psychology, and I just like to point out that it's amazing how music can impact and set this tone for where we're headed. Of course, the backdrop and the lights add to it. Knowing this is about, the universe and the coming to existence of Earth and life and these things, it's fitting to have the stars and that galactic vibe in the background, the lights, all those things add to the experience, of course. But even notes that are used and compositions, pay attention to that. And tell me in the comments, how does that make you feel? What does it, if you already know the song, of course, you already have certain pre-conceptualizations in your mind. If you don't, let me know, what does this make you feel at just first listen, first glance? And for those of you who are familiar, when you listen to this for the first time, how did it make you feel, right? You don't know what's coming when it's new. What does that do with you? Because I think it's just amazing to see how music, beyond even just lyrics and the meaning thereof, how music impacts us on such a deep level and makes us feel things. And of course, we're all, human beings who are individuals, so we'll bring in our own beliefs, our own experiences and perceptions, and that adds to it and to the emotional state that it evokes in us. But it's still cool to see. So let me know in the comments below how that makes you feel. For me, it creates this sense of suspense. I don't know what's coming, but I know that this is about a form of creation, evolution. So I'm picturing, I'm feeling this idea of suspense, right? It makes me think of Genesis, the first words where it says in the beginning, right, the void and the dark, and so, thinking of something being nothing or something being void, something being not yet. It sets the tone for expectation, I guess, maybe anticipation, if you will, and then the strings and just the different layers and colors, just to paint that picture, that come in as the composition continues. Let me go on. Thoughts here, real quick. Breakthrough. Things are starting to light up. I mean, regardless if you are a person who doesn't believe in God and looks at it more scientifically evolutionary, right? Or you are a person of faith who believes there's a creative intelligence that spoke and breathed these things into existence. There's something so powerful here about the instrumentation accompanying this idea of something starting, something breaking through, and then of course the cinematography of the backdrop, the light breaking through. It builds up so beautifully with the drums and the elements of percussion and rhythmic elements coming in here. It creates a sense of awe. You know what I mean? Let me keep going. Hopeful. Okay, again, pay attention to the notes and the arrangement. A moment ago, when the breakthrough was happening and things were just starting to form, right? The light is starting to increase. The notes that I perceived here gave me a sense of hopeful, joyful, right? Which makes me think of beginnings. And this is just me projecting thoughts and feelings of how I perceive that. Now, again, some of those notes that are coming in, almost they take us on this ride. Now it's almost dipping again, in the sense of either possibly going back to suspense or something changing, right? It's more of a sense of no, not sadness, not so much fear, but it's like going down a mountain and something is just that depends though. I guess this can be a lot of joy when you're rolling down a mountain and you don't have to do all the hard work of going uphill anymore. I don't know how to really put it in words right now, but it changes. It creates, it's very much an emotional progress journey.
After sleeping through 100 million centuries, we have finally opened our eyes on a sumptuous planet, sparkling with color, bountiful with life. Within decades, we must close our eyes again. Isn't it a noble and enlightened way of spending our brief time in the sun? To work at understanding.
That part is phenomenal. Spending our brief time in the sun. That does. I know I've said this so many times. I've referenced Dr. Yalom's book, Staring at the Sun, quite a bit. But that makes me think of the way he words some of that. Those conversations about our existence, our necessity to deal with death, and the need to appreciate and understand that our time here is limited, and that time, that brief time in the sun, right, where we're here, is very short, but we got to talk about it. We got to deal with it. So that verbiage it stands out to me for that reason. I love how Flora came in vocally, phenomenally beautiful. This seems to be that first part, and it's titled 4.6, and then it transitions into life, and then the Toolmaker, and then the understanding, and eventually then sea-worn driftwood. It's awesome how Richard Dawkins, I think he's playing the alien pipes, right? If I remember correctly, they have that sound of bagpipes, and it just creates such a beautiful color to this composition that I really love. It just adds beautifully. It's very joyous to me, a very joyous instrument. I love how Floriansen comes in here. It creates just this very angelic element of reverence. It's beautiful. Let's keep going.
Understanding the universe and how we have come to wake up in it.
I guess that would be the perfect summary for what this song is about. The work of understanding the universe, right? And how we've come to live in it and wake up in it. Beautiful. I love that definition, to wake up in it. Beautiful, poetically painted, to wake up in the universe that we live in. Wow. I'll go back to the beginning of the next chapter called Life. Very funny to me to start and now just come in with hard rock after this beautiful introduction, this melodic, all these different elements, these different colors and elements to paint this picture of where we're at. And wait a minute, 4.6. For a second, I was wondering if the first chapter title 4.6 is also the exact length of how long they're playing, because with Nightwish and with Tuomas Holopainen, you often have those masterful details that are just really impressive. I don't know, but now just starting the rock, coming in strong with the rock for the next chapter title, Life is funny, because I had to laugh because life is indeed like that. I feel crazy and wild and beautiful and diverse and vast, but
The cosmic law of gravity pulled the newborns around the fire. Careless cold infinity in every vast direction.
Wahnsinn, amazing. Even the switches in her voice, the different timbres and ability that she has with her voice to create the high notes, the operatic, the low, the rasp, almost gloomy right now, very serious, almost spoken word. The beautiful cinematography in the background of the turtles and the different sea life. Even to speak of a lonely fare in the Goldilocks zone, right? Because we on Earth here are in the Goldilocks zone. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. We're right there where we can survive. But being a lonely fare, such a paradox. We'll go into the lyrics later more, but you're in that perfect zone, right? Even as it started, opus perfectum, right? That the perfect work, opus meaning work, job, labor, perfectum meaning perfect, right? That perfect place as life came about, as creation occurred, as things came into existence. but we're lonely farers. Isn't that such a crazy phenomenon, right? To be in that perfect zone. And I think even wording it like that, when we take the time to stop and just listen for a bit, just ponder, there's a somber reminder for us to say, wait a minute, we have that limited time in the sun. We're in that Goldilocks zone. We're lonely farers, which we are. We all die alone at the end of the day. We have to walk through those doors by ourselves, ultimately. So we are lonely farers. One could also say, does it mean lonely farers as in us as humanity on this planet? Because we don't, are not sure of other life in other terrains in the universe, in the galaxies. Nonetheless, even emotionally, psychologically speaking, we're lonely farers at times. And there's such an irony with this perfect Goldilocks zone we've been given. What are those chances, right? I mentioned this in one of my other videos. The chances of our birth are 1 in 400 trillion. Very, very small chance of us being that sperm that reaches the egg, that comes into existence and thrives and is now alive, conscious and breathing and alive. And nonetheless, we live in a world where many of us are lonely farers, right? And so there's this balance to respect that, I believe, to acknowledge, to understand. We can't escape it. We can try to keep busy and distract ourselves, but we'll have to eventually stare at the sun and deal with death and consider that. But at the same time, I think it can be a somber reminder to reach out to one another because we're in this Goldilocks zone together. Anyways, let me not go too much into the details yet, but there's so many golden nuggets. Haha, see what I did there? That it would be hard just to wait till the end.
Lonely farer in the Goldilocks zone, she has exhaled to herself. From the stellar nursery into a carbon feast, enter Luca, the tapestry of chemistry. There's a writing in the garden, leading us to the mother of all. We are one, we are universe. Focus on what will be, science of the legal you see. Chaos flash right in the tide of our soul. Day to day, new opening for the greatest show on earth. Violet shadows welcoming the outside world to the stuff of stars. Getting the tree of a biological holy. Enter the tapestry of chemistry. There's a writing in the garden, leading us to the mother of all. We are one, we are universe. Focus on what will be, science of the Ligolian Sea. Chaos fast, right in the tide of our soul. A day-to-day new opening for the greatest show on earth. We are here to care for the garden, the wonder of earth, of every form most beautiful. Every form most beautiful. Are one, we are a universe. Forebears of what will be, science of the Devonian Sea. Your stars right in the tide of our soul. A day-to-day new opening for the great
I need a second. You guys, when I was getting ready to watch this, okay, my focus was, well, get the video out that people have been waiting for and asking for, right? It's been too long. And then, of course, another element is, right, let's see, I've listened to a lot of Nightwish, but, sometimes you go into these reviews, reaction analyses, and you want to make sure you bring the people what they want, but at the same time, I want to be authentic, right? What do I feel? How am I perceiving this? But for the most part, right, I don't necessarily start with, oh, I can't wait to watch this because I don't know what I'm getting into, right? My focus is giving you an analysis that is worthy of a video and your views and subscription. And as this continues, I am, I got goosebumps. At one point, I almost wanted to cry because I love all kinds of genres of music, okay, from all around the world. You guys know this, the World Music Channel. And I love strong rhythmic elements that are strong on the drums and percussion, which right now, what he was doing on the drums, was that Jukka Nevalainen? What he just did with the drums was amazing. And I already have a soft spot for, right, strong rhythmic elements. Right now, it created this sense of awe. It created this sense of just respect, right? It makes me think of lions. It makes me think of strong elements. It makes me think of the forces of nature, right? We need all of the above. We need the soft wind and the high notes. We need the birds and the gentle animals. We need the predators and the tough ones. The same goes for humans, right? We are very much animals, right? Though we are... and more advanced at times, or we would think so. We behave very much like it, right? I mean, from the way we migrate and the way that we conquer lands and the way that we have to keep moving to adapt and the way that we interact in relationships. A lot of our behaviors can be found at times maybe on a more primal level, but it can be found amongst animals. And it's just phenomenal. I was watching Animal Planet, and one quote that was phenomenal to me that I will paraphrase basically said, the ability to survive depends on our ability to move freely. Freedom to move is what keeps us alive. And it was speaking of animals and migration and adaptation. I didn't watch too much. I had my schnitzel and spätzle lunch before I came to the studio. And so I thought that's so true. We see that in humanity, right? And though certain migrations amongst humans, depending on your political climate, are more frowned upon, right? And there are certain injustices we disagree with or we frown upon as human beings with a certain level of consciousness and a moral compass. We very much are like animals in that we migrate, we adapt, we conquer, we move. And the entire universe, the entire world is formed around that. And so all that to say is that the drums and that climaxing it creates this sense of awe and respect. It brings in a force that beautifully complements the angelic high notes of Florian here, that operatic. And to me, it's just such a perfect way to describe how we need both, how both was involved in the creation of the world. The process, the creation, is a phenomenal one, a breathtaking one that I cannot comprehend. All right, I don't know nearly enough about the. Once in a while, I have to look up. I'm typing things to look up here, but I don't know nearly enough about the various eons and the different ways that or even the geologic periods that our world is being labeled into in the different categories by scientists. I'm not familiar with a lot of that. So I have to look up certain words, right? The Devonian Sea, which is that Devonian is a geological period I saw. And it's, according to certain scientists, spans from a certain amount of years to the end of a different era, a different period, right? So there's these different ways when it comes to the ocean and the sea where they label what happened when, right? They break it down in chronological order into different periods. Things happening in the background. There was a lot of blue, the water, right? That was phenomenal. To take it from the galactic and the stars in the beginning to the next part where it was spoke of life, to have the different animals and I don't know if it was plankton or the seaweed or different creatures of the waters, the oceans, right? And to speak of being, to be a scion, which is that young shoot, twig, or plant, or a descendant. You're a descendant of a notable family, but the lyrics say you're a scion of the Devonian Sea, so you're a descendant of that period of the ocean, right? And so it shows all these animals, a lot of blue. Now we're switching, and as we get ready to get into the chapter called the Toolmaker, red colors come into play. Even using different colors like that, fitting to, right, the galaxies and stars, to now the blue and the underwater life, right, where things came to be. Life is in the water, to now switch to the red. Toolmaker, I'm curious to see what those lyrics are about, but a toolmaker makes me think of someone who is crafting, right? Like the potter. Scripture speaks of the potter, right? Being, and we are the clay, right? God versus man. Is the toolmaker a reference to the possibility of a creator or us creating? The tool makers, right? We are the tools, right? Well, sometimes we act like tools too on this earth. But, there's just so many elements here where I'm thinking, wow, to use all these different backdrops in the different chapters fitting to the theme of each chapter, but even to use the different colors, right? They have a psychological impact on us. Nonetheless, one thing that I think we all have in common is that if we take time to ponder and process this just a little, it's overwhelming. It is the greatest show on earth. So to title that song, this it's more than a song, this masterpiece like that, I feel like is phenomenal. To compose it in such a way. And that's what I was going to say in the beginning. And then I kind of went on a little tangent. I love all kinds of genres all around the world. What the drums just did here emotionally and as part of this composition was powerful. But I feel like one of the best genres, one of the best ways to portray something such as this, the greatest show on earth, and to talk about that process, life, creation, universe, evolution, I feel like symphonic metal is the best for that, right? It has so much of the classical music that we love, the arrangements, the instrumentation that is just pure music. But then you have these elements of rock, the drums, the electric guitar that I almost find necessary to bring in the passion and the intensity that must be involved when we're talking about these miracles. It's a miracle. Anyways, I went on a little bit of a ramble, but I think this is me also taking a pause because we're over halfway through and it's a long video. And now we're transitioning into the next part, the toolmaker. I see colors of yellow, a little bit red, green. It's just phenomenal. The details. Let's keep going. Wow. They're turning up the heat. Dude. Oh my gosh. I can't even grasp all of it. I had to look up atavistic, which is means relate to or something being characterized by reversion to something ancient or ancestral. Something that is characterized by reversion to something ancient. And reversion is to return to a previous state, to go back to a previous state. The vocabulary and the beauty of the words that are being used in this songwriting is phenomenal. Then from a conceptual standpoint, the different principles, if you will, or topics that are being addressed here. To speak, right? We're going in with the red colors, the fiery. We're talking about the growling and what they're doing vocally to set the tone here for this Toolmaker chapter. To then perhaps maybe the Toolmaker here being a reference to people, what we're doing. We're making tools, right? Which is fitting when we're talking about mankind's evolution and development, right? Going from the universe, then the earth being formed, the creatures in the water. Now we're on land, right? The animals, the growling, the predator sounded like a predator in the woods, roaming, seeking its prey, right? Now we're talking about the Toolmaker, us making things, making tools, right? We discovered fire, we make tools, we hunt, and it just shows this transition, this developmental transition of mankind with that task to understand a grain of sand. The poetry is phenomenal. The concepts here that are being discussed, from addressing humanity's progression, development, if you will, or sometimes maybe lack thereof, right? To even address the lack thereof by saying things like, we're trying to understand that grain of sand. We're given that dream during our time in the sun, right? But then realizing we'll pass, right? This time is finite. We're here for a short period of time. It's the final chapter. Oh my gosh. And in the grand scheme of things, we're so small. Some of these things are so overwhelming to think about. How are you able to put that in a song, in a masterpiece like this? And the variety in this song alone, in this masterpiece. I hate the word saying song because it's so much more. It's just mind-blowing. I know I'm missing so much, but we would be talking here for 2 hours, I think, to pick up every single nuance. And that switch again. Wow. Speaking of that final chapter, right? Our time in the sun coming to an end. It almost looks like someone laying on their back staring up at the sun, which kind of is our last step, right? Which is crazy. Isn't that amazing? To think of that progression. I know we're not done yet, but to think of that progression of the galaxy, the stars, the earth developing, right? We went from all those blue colors in the ocean to now back to blue, laying on our back, staring up at the lights in the sky, right? That's how we are born, right? We come out and we look up and we're given life. 1 in a 400 trillion chance or so that even happens. Our life is so precious. And then we have this limited time here. Such a somber reminder to be grateful and humble that it's all connected. Even lyrics like, we are one, right? We're this universe. And then speaking of man's migration out of Africa, looking at human history, the world's history, the universe's history, there's so much we could talk about. And depending on your preference, you may, be drawn to various things, the geology behind it, the history, human development, sociology, anthropology, right? Some of us more the psychology of it, or philosophy. Some look at it religiously. Others want to look at it scientifically. Yet again, others prefer diving into the archaeology, or the list goes on and on, but each of us will zoom in on different aspects here. And isn't that beautiful? Side note, then I'll keep going. That each of us will pull out different things because we are all one. We're part of this universe, but we've been designed with different personalities and hobbies. We've experienced different things. So where you as might know more about the stars and the astrological points of these things, others of you will know a lot about the earth, right? The development of the earth. You might be more into the geology or archaeology, right? Yet again, others will enjoy the philosophies and pondering certain thought concepts. And it's all beautiful and it's all needed, right? Every one of you is necessary as we understand that we're all unique and loved and special, masterfully designed, but also we're one, right? And it's humbling. It gives us a sense of value to understand we're needed, which he even speaks of in the lyrics at one point, right? Our drive for, what did it say? The tapestry of chemistry. The wording here, phenomenal. But it speaks of the human lust to feel so exceptional. Isn't that crazy? That's humbling. And it's true, right? We want to feel unique. And there's something special about being told you're special. But at the same time, also necessary to be reminded we're all part of the whole. We're quite small. And that can be scary sometimes because some take that and they feel lonely. And then there's those who take that and they feel home because they feel like they're part of something. This is blah. This is a movie. This is like a movie score.
Everybody, as loud as you can. We were here. A big one coming. We were here.
Wow.
And the last one. We were
Oh my gosh. Aww. Is two almost behind and crying. Looked like it. I am. They got me now. I'm almost through and they got me. Oh my gosh. The different pictures of the different eras, right? Mankind, what we've done, right? The snake, interesting imagery to use there, right? From an animal standpoint to, different religious associations to what the snake means, what it has meant for man, right? Christianity, that downfall of Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden, right? But in different religions means different things. We won't go into that right now. Even when it comes to scientifically, right? Animal evolution, we look at the snake and how it's developed and adapted and what it could represent even in the animal kingdom. We won't go into all of that, right? But just brilliant to use that and to have that imagery in the background, the different elements of human history, the bombs, the explosion, the things we've done as the tool makers or tools we are sometimes, and then to transition into these different people from all kinds of countries, all shades, all colors, men, women, just people from all around the world, to then have clips from our human history, right? Film footage of people dancing and singing and, elements of how music even has developed, how cinematography and videography has developed and the things we humans have done and accomplished. And to then have written in the sky, in the beautiful galactic night sky, we were here. I mean, that got me because, and then to see the time, the clocks, the different times, because our time is running out, guys. As human beings, every one of our lives here is finite. And regardless of what you believe, what comes after, it is such a privilege, such a miracle to be here. You are a miracle. That is not just a slogan or a phrase. It's literally scientifically true. Studies have been done of how likely it is for you to be the one to be born, right? From all the sperm, the millions of sperm trying to reach the egg, from all the possibilities. The chance for you to be here. You are a miracle. And that is just speaking of us as human beings. That's not counting animals and planktons and earth life, sea life, creatures of the air. That is not referring to the stars and the fact that we're in this Goldilocks zone and how we would be no more if we were a little too far away from the sun or a little too close to it. I mean, just the miracle of our existence and how everything works together in the ecosystem and how animals move and operate and migrate and adapt and how the world keeps going and how it all just works. And I know there's so much pain sometimes, and sometimes we get lost in our own little worlds when we're exposed to suffering and it feels like the end of the world, but it's all so much bigger than we realize. And to then see those words and for them to all almost like declare it, to shout it at the top of their lungs, we were here, right? Which sometimes people do when they go out, or kids somewhere, hanging out at the doing graffiti on a train or in a tunnel or under a bridge or somewhere at a pub or bar or club, writing their phone numbers and silly things on the bathroom doors. And often you would find people's names. We were here, right? What a way to try to capture a moment. What a way to try to leave a legacy. What a way of dealing with our existential fears and our desire to have meant something while we were here. What a way of dealing with the fact that we won't always be here. That got me. And in the end, it just almost looked like Thomas was stepped away from the keys to cry. I don't blame him. This is emotional and powerful. I mean, probably the best composition you could have to try to put into art and song, into musical art, what the greatest show on earth looks like. And I 100% agree with that song choice title. Wow.
We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Sahara. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively exceeds the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I, in our ordinariness, that are here. We privileged few who won the lottery of birth against all odds. How dare we whine at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred?
The orchestral composition is just mind-blowing.
Thus, from the war of nature, from famine and death, the most exalted object which we are capable of conceiving, namely the production of the higher animals, directly follows. There is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers originally breathed into a few forms or into one. And that whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms most beautiful, and most wonderful have been and are being evolved.
What is there to say? I feel like just listening and reading through the lyrics over and over again and pondering that, it speaks for itself. There's words that I had to look up that I wasn't familiar with, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm not as familiar with the different Archean eons and the different categories, if you will, such as the Devonian Sea and the different eons that are being used to describe the different phases that Earth has gone through, according to scientists. I think this art piece, this masterpiece, can be a beautiful and a somber reminder to come together and to appreciate this short time we have in the sun, right? Where different opinions will divide us, because even as he says, right, we have this lust to be exceptional, right? The lust to feel so exceptional. And I think because of our existential fears and our desire to matter and our desperate attempt to try to have that dream and understand that one piece of grain, as he says in the lyrics, because of that attempt at holding on to life and dealing with, in a million different ways, dealing with our existential fears and our death anxieties. We end up arguing and our ego gets involved and we say, I'm right. No, I'm right. Right. And this is why. And sometimes those arguments are very silly, right? They're because, right? It says it here. That's not a good enough argument when you're talking to a scholar. But, we could get stuck in all these arguments with ego. That goes for anyone, any profession, no matter how smart, how educated or intelligent, how much we think we know. We get caught up because our existence, our identity is based on these beliefs, on these theories. And so a project like this can be so humbling to bring people together, to humbly remind us that we are one, that we are part of this miracle. And I love how they concluded, how they went full circle from that first sunrise, that opus perfectum, right? That perfect work. Somewhere there, us sleeping, right? We're sleeping at this point. Humans are not around yet. We can't grasp what happened. We can only imagine. We can only dream. Weeks of sleeping through 100 million centuries, we finally opened our eyes on a sumptuous planet, sparkling with color, bountiful with life. The way that these words, that this story is colored with words and poetry is phenomenal. I won't go through all the lyrics. You can read them on your own time. And then we were here. Amazing. And then the outro. We're not going to read through all of it, but that was just, I mean, if you have like a cake and you put the cherry on top, what do you do after that? I mean, you got the cake, you had the icing, you had the cherry on top, that we were here, right? And then you come in with that outro. I mean, it's like I dipped it in gold. I don't know, like it's just this beautiful way of entering. And one more time, the somber reminder, the composition of the orchestra in the background, as they're, going on stage and bowing and clapping and saying thank you and goodbye. We're going to die. That makes us the lucky ones. And that monologue was powerful. Most people are never going to die because they're never going to be born. That works with what I said about that 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born. And I know when we're hurting, it's hard to think of that, right? We see our pain, we see us, ourselves. We forget how we're all part of a much bigger picture. And sometimes in our pain, we might even say, I rather would have not been born. Then I wouldn't know how hard life is. And there's some validity to that pain, of course, because if we would have never been born, we would have never had to suffer. So going there in our minds in suffering is understandable. But at the same time, we also must remember, if we would have never been born, we would have also not experienced a lot of the beauty. And so when we see things like this, I think this can also be a therapeutic reminder of all the beauty that is out there. There is pain in your life, yes, and depending on how severe it is right now, that may be all you see. But there is more. There are many, many more stars. There is a great universe out there. There are miracles happening left and right. The fact that we're breathing, the way that our body works and our neurons connect and fire as we think, and how within split seconds our mind thinks something and our body does it. The list goes on and on of the miracles that are happening in our bodies every day and around us and in the earth and in the ecosystem amongst the animals and plants, that sometimes it helps to take a step back and not just look at our suffering, to look around, to recognize some of those miracles and to realize, yes, if we would have never been born, we would have never had to suffer, but that we know of. But we also would have never experienced these miracles, and we are the lucky ones for that. So it's a humbling outro, humbling monologue here. There is grandeur in this view of life with its several powers. I'll just skip a few lines. The part that I want to point out is, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. From so simple a beginning, right? From nothing, from the void, from the stillness, endless forms of beautiful and most wonderful things have been and are being evolved. And as I saw the camera going through the crowd with these people, these young ladies in the front, tears in their eyes, right? Probably just coming off the high or still in it of the phenomenal experience that they just had. I hope every one of them listened to those words. I hope every one of you hears those words. From so simple a beginning, endless forms of most beautiful and most wonderful things have been and are being evolved. It makes me think of another scripture where it says, I have been fearfully and wonderfully made. You are one of those endless forms of most beautiful and most wonderful things. You are, I need you to hear that, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful. You are most beautiful and most wonderful. And it's a miracle that you're here. This was phenomenal. I was not ready for this, but this far exceeded what I could have been ready for. I got lots more coming for you guys. As always, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next ride. Ayo!